Hey guys, welcome back to the Chad RC Models and More channel. I'm Chad. This channel focuses on pretty much everything DJI, Mavic, Phantom 4 Pro, all that good stuff. Also, starting your own drone business is a big topic that I'm going to be covering. I've got a video on that. If you look back on my channel, if you are or are not a subscriber, I have a lot more of those coming tomorrow. I'm actually taking a break from studying right now because tomorrow I'm going to be taking my 107 test. So you'll either see Happy Chad or Sad Chad, one or the other. But the reason why we're here to talk today is FPV goggles and the DJI goggles. Now this isn't going to be all techie and all that stuff about the DJI goggles. There's plenty of videos out on the technology and everything. First of all, I wanted to say that I got in on the pre-order. The price for what they are promised to do is just simply amazing. So I'm very excited for them to come. Two things about that. I hope they ship close to the promised date, and I hope I don't get a dud. DJI's track record has been kind of iffy lately as far as hitting target ship dates and not shipping out products that don't have issues with them. So let's cross our fingers that I get a good one. So when I was thinking about this video, I wanted to say or title it something like, oh, are the DJI goggles worth the money, or are they worth this or anything or whatever? But that's just not even applicable anymore, because they're totally worth the money for the amount of tech that's popped into those things. But I want to really let you guys think about some stuff. Hopefully you watch it the end of the video here, because I know a lot of you guys out there have never even flown FPV. So there's a couple things that you might want to think of. Let's start with a little bit of the tech. One thing that kind of they are really pushing and selling is head tracking and the gimbal tracking with head tracking associated. You know, when you look around, basically the gimbal will move and all that stuff. I mean, that's nothing new. I've been doing that for years with these old Fat Sharks. I had a similar setup on a pan and tilt servo with my old Bixler 3 that was my long range FPV aircraft back 3 or 4 years ago, before all this blew up as far as what we were allowed and not allowed to do. Probably wasn't allowed to do it back then either, but nobody really cared. When you're flying FPV with your goggles on, a lot of the pro pilots and stuff like that even comment about this. Your whole body changes. First of all, when you have the goggles on, you know, they show everybody just looking around and having a good time and stuff like that. Well, if I'm doing this with head tracking, that just doesn't work, because that means I'm not looking exactly where I'm going. And that is something that you probably are going to do even if you don't think you are doing it. The most natural position when people start flying FPV is sitting in a chair with their goggles on, and either down like this or up like that. So your neck's probably going to get a strain in it. I know mine used to. Now that I've been flying FPV for years, I can't stand to sit down. I need to stand up. And even when I'm racing and stuff like that, I find myself doing like this, leaning into the corners, thinking that it's actually going to help, when really it doesn't. So the immersive experience will cause you to do some crazy tendencies. Maybe even like grind your teeth or chew on your tongue or something like that. People have all kinds of weird little quirks on them and stuff. So don't be so focused in on that part of the technology. It's kind of gimmicky, in my opinion. The next thing to talk about is the actual goggle type. Now, you got a couple different types of goggles that are out there. You got what DJI is doing with the screen, the full screen that folds down and folds up, which is kind of cool because that's kind of a hybrid design of something like this, where you're permanently in a tunnel, or my glyphs, where I can actually have these on and yet I still have visibility below me, so I can look at my Go app and see what I'm doing, or I can look above and keep an eye on my drone, because These glyphs, if you've seen any videos or mine, operate a little bit differently than the normal FPV goggle. All honesty that is, if the Mavic controller had an HDMI output, or if there was an Android tablet that was worth, you know, a dime that had an HDMI out, I probably would stick with my glyphs. Granted, the DJI goggles have DVR and all that kind of stuff built into it. You know, the touchscreen and all that stuff on the side, I don't know yet, but I don't see that being that useful. It might be, it depends on how it's integrated, but that seems kind of gimmicky to me. I have some questions as well about how the actual goggles are going to transmit. You know, I got these for my Connex HD system for FPV, and the Connex has different transmission modes. It has a 1080p mode that will actually it's 720p, but let's just say it's 1080p to keep you on the same page here, at 30 frames a second, which would be equivalent to the DJI mode of the running on 5.8 720p 30 frames a second. Then it also has the Connex a 720p mode at 60 frames a second, which adds latency and more delay to the signal. And on the flip side, the DJI goggles are supposed to have a close-in, full high-def, 60 frame per second video downlink. So I'm really anxious to see exactly how that works. If you have a choice between latency and higher frame rate, or lower latency and lower frame rate. Right now, when I use goggles with the Phantom 4 Pro through the HDMI module, I don't have that choice. I have a really, it's usable for me, but for someone who doesn't have FPV experience, it's you know, kind of tricky to fly in tight spaces. If you're out in the open, it's no problem, but if you're in tight spaces, wanting to get certain shots, it could be an issue because you could crash before you know it. Getting back to the whole visor down completely in a tunnel thing, like with the DJI goggles or the Fat Sharks, as compared to the glyphs. You guys know that drones are like magnets for just stupid things. Dogs, people coming out of the woodwork, kids, cars, birds. Anytime you fire up your drone, if you're not by yourself, somebody or something comes and is attracted to you to see what you are doing. They're looking over your shoulder, they want to see the video, and that's fine and everything, but sometimes, you know, we all get a little nervous and don't feel comfortable with people looking over our shoulder. You know, I've even had someone kind of reach out and say, "Oh my God, look at that," and touch my iPad, you know, while I'm flying. So that's one thing about the glyphs, is that I can still keep an awareness to what's going on because I can see all around when I have them on, except for directly in front of me, where something like this, you can't, or the DJI goggles, you can't. You would have to basically hear somebody coming and flip it up. So doing any kind of work, even flying hobbyist type of stuff, you know, the visual observer is going to become even more important, especially for the community, because the last thing we need is a lot of people out there with goggles on just flying around and really just losing themselves in the technology and the beauty of flying with FPV goggles. It's not a bad thing, but it's something that certainly could happen. So I think other than that, I pretty much covered the few things that I wanted to talk about with FPV. You know, it's a great experience. I highly recommend it. These goggles are great that are coming out because they'll be able to be used with a lot of other things too. You know, portable DVD players, your iPhone, your iPod. So they have a lot of external uses besides being used with our drones. So that's always a plus. That's how these were originally marketed, until the Connex people started buying them up and, you know, using them And so far, they're still my favorite goggles, but when I get to the DJI goggles, one of them's gonna go. They both cost the same amount of money. I'm just gonna have to basically make that decision and figure out which one has to go. Right now, I would probably be leaning towards keeping the DJI goggles just because, like I said, the Mavic doesn't have an HDMI output. So that's going to be it, guys. Got any questions or comments, let me know. Hopefully some of you found some of this information useful and insightful. You know, I know there's, like I said, there's going to be a lot of first-time goggle users out there, and welcome to the FPV world. Throw that Mavic in fixed mode and sports mode and just fly it like you stole it. See you later.